educational purposes only. The content is not intended to diagnose, treat, cure, or prevent any diseases, nor is it intended to take the place of your primary care physician. The statements in this program have not been evaluated by the FDA. Testimonials are shared as individual experiences of the individual. Results vary and may not be typical. We do not make any claims regarding health or income. As an empowered individual, you have options available. We are honored to have a founding father of the science of epigenetics guiding us with the best options to obtain or maintain optimal health, Dr. Joel Wallach. Educational purposes only. The content is not intended.
On is Becca Dukes, and I am excited to be able to join you from no matter where we are in bringing valuable information that helps you as an empowered individual to make choices to benefit your own health and well-being. So if you were invited by somebody, that you get back with them and thank them for sharing this program with you, as you are in for a treat. We have an amazing individual from the medical industry who has found the importance of nutrition and how nutrition is what pharmaceuticals wish they could be when it comes to how they work within the body. So, folks, if you were invited by somebody specific, make sure that you get back with them and thank them. Because I know there's going to be something that you're going to hear in today's message that's going to hit that missing switch. So you've been trying to figure out why. Why are all these things going on? And you might just learn about it today. So, if I could get Pharmacist Ben on the screen with me, that would be absolutely fantastic. Hello, Pharmacist Ben, and I don't know why I don't see you. There we go. Maybe working on it. There. Perfect. Absolutely perfect. So, Pharmacist Ben,
Rebecca.
You have been through pharmacy school. You have worked in pharmacies.
Yes.
And when you were in school, you learned about nutrition. And then when you were working in the pharmacy, they didn't share how
this was the olden days. This was the olden days. Things have changed a little bit, but the old days, nutrition was not a thing. You know, there weren't health food stores on every corner. You couldn't go on, there was no internet to go on and just buy supplements. There wasn't information. Drugs as the gold standard of potency, and drugs are, nutrients are not as powerful or as potent as drugs. They're kinder and they're gentler because they get incorporated into the body. So they have to have a degree of subtlety and a degree of nuance in their mechanism of action that drugs don't have. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
But whenever you talk to the doctor about vitamins and minerals, there are so many doctors that say, oh, don't take them. You don't need them.
That's right. It's not just doctors, it's representatives of the model, of the medical model. Nurse, PAs, medical assistants, pharmacists, people who represent the medical model are propagandized and brainwashed to believe the same things that the public is brainwashed to believe. If you watch the news tapes, for example, you can't go 10 minutes without seeing a commercial for a drug, usually multiple commercials. And the commercials utilize the latest marketing techniques of jingles and music, and that one with where they do that whole Broadway musical where they're dancing and they're singing about their jardins, and they're always really happy and excited when they're taking their drugs. They're always bungee jumping, or they're jumping out of an airplane, or they're hiking up a mountain, or they're playing basketball. All these people on drugs are the most athletic, beautiful people you've ever met. Makes you want to take drugs. It makes you want to get on drugs, because then you can jump out of an airplane too when you take your psoriasis medication. Are normal.
Recording in
Make
progress.
no mistake about it. There are drugs that are milder than others. For example, statin drugs are milder than chemotherapy or methotrexate, but there's no prescription drug that does not require the mobilization of nutrients for detoxification and elimination. Nutrients are not detoxified and eliminated, they're incorporated. They're utilized in both the structure and the function of the body in terms of the building, the bones and the connective tissue, and the stuff that makes us solid, as well as the biochemistry, the metabolism, all require nutrients. There's no drugs in the metabolic profile of the body. Drugs are treated as a foreign substance, as a toxin, and they require detoxification. Now, are there times when a drug can reduce symptoms and make you more comfortable? Yes. And I always say this about pain pills. I believe everybody should have pain pills in their medicine cabinet, because you never know when you're going to be in you have a severe accident or have some severe pain when you want to have that pain addressed. I've told the story before, but it's really it had a big impression on me. And I don't mean for folks who have heard it before, I'm sorry to repeat myself, but it's kind of instructive. When I had my knee surgery and they wheeled me out of the operating room, all I could think of was morphine. I heard this voice, and I could hear it, and it was me, but it seemed like it was another person going, take medication to address imbalances that are related to how we're living our lives. Mm-hmm. And in that way, the physician, the medical model, the prescriber has this attitude of don't worry what you're eating. Don't worry how you're living your life. Don't worry about exercise. Don't worry about smoking. Don't worry about stress. Don't worry about McDonald's, because we got medication. And this is the thinking. In the Middle Ages and before, in the early Middle Ages, they had priests, and the priest would say, "Don't worry, you just come, give us give us a tenth of your income, and give us your house when you die, and we'll talk to God for you, because we talk to God. We know God. You don't know God. We know God. So you do whatever you want. We'll talk to God and get you out of it. Just make sure you give us your house when you die and 10% of your income." Same idea. Instead of having priests, we have medical priests. The medical priests culture that the clergy operated in, or the clergy functioned as in the Middle Ages. And so we have this idea that it doesn't matter what we do in our life. And this creates a sense of disempowerment. And the way I look at myself as a longevity representative, I'm not really here to help people get healthy. I'm here to help people feel powerful in their lives, to feel in control of their lives. Because, and doctors don't help because they're not necessarily biochemists or biologists, they're clinicians. and this is a really important distinction to make, the distinction of clinical chemistry versus the realm of the biochemist. And if that happens to be my passion and my love, and this I suspect is some of, even though it sounds intimidating, it's relatable because we all have biochemistry. And when you understand the biochemistry and all of a sudden you understand why you're breaking out, or why you have arthritis or knee pain, or why you have an autoimmune disease, that creates power. We're here to give people power. We're here to inspire people. We're not in the supplement business, we're in the hope business, the inspiration business, the empowerment business. There's personal development, and then there's biological or health development. We're in the health development business. We want to get people healthy, have people get healthy themselves, to be their own health authority. And that's why we do the Daily with Doc. All of us clinicians and healthcare professionals come on the Daily with Doc show to help people understand how their bodies work and how they can use nutritional supplementation to optimize the health of their body. And that's what I discovered as a pharmacist, is that most of the time, probably all of the time, to do the same thing that not to do the same thing, that could do what a drug purported or pretended to do without toxicity, and was available without interacting with the medical model. You could just go over the counter, or you could go to on the internet, or you could talk to your longevity rep and obtain molecules that would do this exactly what a drug pretends to do without toxicity, without having to deal with the medical model, and without, unless you have insurance, without having to burden yourself financially. You know, there's our costs, our healthcare costs in this country are about $4 trillion a year. Can you even conceive of what that number means? That's $4,000 million, or sorry, I don't even know what it is. It's $4,000 billion. What the heck? $4,000 billion? What? How does that even compute to anybody? $4 trillion a year in healthcare costs. And we used to be glib about that number, but that number is lining people's pockets. That's $4 trillion for pharmaceutical companies and hospital companies and HMOs and all the other, the device companies and the x-ray manufacturers and the CAT scan manufacturers, and acute issues. And this is where doctors excel, by the way. They excel when it comes to stitching something back on that's been cut off, get into a car accident. This is what the medical model should be doing. And they're great for that. And you don't need Beyond Tangy Tangerine if you have I shouldn't say you don't need it, but Beyond Tangy Tangerine is not going to repair your bone if it's been broken. You need to have a cast, but Beyond Tangy Tangerine will accelerate the healing of that. Nutritional supplementation will accelerate the healing of that. So doctors have their place, but their place is not in the treatment of lifestyle health challenges, which are the vast majority, over 80% of our health issues. And so I personally believe that every single human being on planet Earth would benefit from being on a well-rounded nutritional supplement program like the Healthy Start Pack. And this is why I will go to my grave, standing on every rooftop I can find, every platform I can get myself on, to scream at the top of my lungs, you need Beyond Tangy Tangerine. You need the Healthy Start Pack. You need the I-26 and the ultimate enzymes and the glucogel caps and the ultimate selenium and all these other wonderful formulations that Dr. Wallach and Richard Renton and all the other folks associated with Doc and with Richard and with all the people at Longevity, as well as the distributors, who are all good, kind people who want to make a difference in the world. There's not a single chronic health challenge that you cannot improve by changing your lifestyle on all the dimensions: the spiritual, mental, emotional, and physical dimension, and the fourfold square of health dimension, that is nutrition, respiration, movement, and rest. Not a single health challenge that won't improve, and won't improve quickly. That's the really good news. These health challenges that the doctors tell us there's nothing we could do, it's genetic, or it's you're going to be on this medication the rest of your life. These are health challenges that I love to deal with, because I know I can get that patient to start to feel better usually within 24 to 72 hours. Now, if you have a serious health challenge, it may take months to completely reverse it. But the sicker you are, the faster you can begin to notice results. And that's why I am so pumped on longevity products, the longevity nutritional supplementation, the longevity nutrition, and the longevity message as well.
Absolutely, as am I.
And strong.
Well, thank you. I think it's this Arizona sunshine. But you were talking about, there's no chronic diseases. And what about
white blood cells? There's a type of white blood cell called a mast cell that is a storage warehouse of this molecule histamine. Histamine is a chemical that controls the body's response to assault. That is assaults that come in from foods, or assaults that come in from bacteria, or assaults that come in from splinters and other things that get into the system, bee venom and snake venom. Any kind of assault in the body will trigger a histamine response, which is manifested visually by redness. Classic example is rosacea. The redness of rosacea is the manifestation of histamine. Histamine causes blood vessels to expand and open up. Why would histamine, an immune molecule, a defensive molecule, be linked to blood vessels opening up? Well, when blood vessels open up, they can release their protective molecules to the area that needs to be protected. So blood vessel dilation, vasodilation, and the expansion of the cells in the blood vessels allows fluids to leak. And the fluids are part of the inflammatory defensive response. The fluids and also other white blood cells. So anytime you have redness in response to something, you're dealing with a histamine reaction. Also, histamine causes, as I said, fluids to leak, and so you'll get runniness, runny nose, runny eyes. You'll get mucus secretion. Mucus is another part of the defensive response, and histamine just turns on all of the defense systems. So mucus and swelling and itching and redness and tearing and wateriness are all manifestations of the histamine response. Histamine also makes things happen really fast. Presumably, it's an immune molecule, so you need to be in action. The body needs to be in action, and histamine signals activity. In fact, this is why antihistamines are used to help put people to sleep. You ever take Benadryl, or you can even take Benadryl. The diphenhydramine, which is the generic name for Benadryl, is part of Somanex, sleep medicine. So histamine speeds things up, makes things happen, causes cells to divide really rapidly, causes blood vessels to expand. And antihistamines reverse that. That's why we take antihistamines to sleep, and that's why we take antihistamines when we have itchiness. Or that's why we take antihistamines when we have redness. That's why we take antihistamines when we have mucus, when we have a runny nose or tearing eyes. Histamine, interestingly, is a brain chemical. It's a neurotransmitter, and it's associated with activity. And in fact, antihistamines are not only used to help people fall asleep, in addition to being anti-allergy, antihistamines are also used as antipsychotics, because it turns out that histamine's revving up effect on the brain is associated with psychosis and schizophrenia. So antihistamines in general are used, or many antipsychotics, I should say, are antihistamines. So histamine has a whole wide range of biochemical reactions that are good when they happen occasionally or in the short term, but bad when they happen. intestine.
Recording in
But due to
progress.
things like taking antibiotics or bile problems or stomach acid issues or using Nexium and Prilosec or chronic constipation or long-term ingestion of FODMAPs, the bacteria-feeding foods, we end up with a condition called SIBO, which we talked about before, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. SIBO is associated with excess histamine production because bacteria make histamine. Histamine's role in expanding tissue is a major cause of leaky gut. This is why SIBO is associated with leaky gut, because the secretion of histamine, among other chemicals, inflames the intestine, causes the intestine to become leaky, just like it causes blood vessels to become leaky, it causes intestine to become leaky. So in addition to the histamine that's produced from the mast cells, histamine is also produced by bacteria in the intestine. Histamine is also produced by, enters into the body through foods. And many of the foods that are high histamine foods are foods that are good foods. Cherries are high in histamine. Avocados are high in histamine. Fruits and vegetables in general can have high histamine content. A lot of fruits and vegetables can have high histamine content. Fish, seafood can be high in histamine. A lot of people who think they have a shellfish allergy are really ingesting histamine. And because their histamine levels are so high in the body, when they eat the shellfish, they can react. And people say, oh, I'm allergic to shellfish. No, you may be having a histamine reaction. There isn't really a lot of stuff in shellfish that can cause an allergic reaction. There's foods you don't want to eat. You obviously don't. Donuts are never good for anybody, and potato chips are never good for anybody, and processed food in general is not good for anybody. But you could be off of the bad foods and still be having a histamine reaction from foods that are supposedly good. And that's why doing a food diary is so important. So the main sources of histamine are from bacteria in the intestine, from white blood cells, specifically mast cells, and also from the intake of foods. So, one more thing. Mast cells, these cells that contain histamine, are located in the connective tissue. They live in the connective tissue. So when you have toxicity in the blood flows through the connective tissue. One of the jobs of the connective tissue is to sieve, to filter toxins. So if you're eating gluten, for example, that gluten goes into the bloodstream, reaction in the blood. As the blood is circulating, it's going to get the immune complexes, they're called circulating immune complexes, and the food particles even, as well as bacterial particles and other junk that gets in through the intestine, literally gets filtered by the connective tissue and gets deposited in the connective tissue where it can activate histamine and mast cells. This can lead to a whole slew of connective tissue diseases, including autoimmune diseases. If you understand what I'm talking about now you understand is the mediating molecule between digestive health issues and inflammatory issues throughout the body. Histamine reactions are especially prominent on the skin, by the way. And histamine reactions on the skin can lead to dermatitises. It can lead to psoriasis and autoimmune diseases. It can lead to rosacea. Very interestingly, there's a bacteria make histamine, and there's a bacteria that will make histamine called, this bacteria levels
Recording
are up
in
because
progress.
the bacteria, the H. pylori, is making histamine. So now they give you antibiotics instead of acid suppressants when you're producing too much stomach acid. Likewise, when you have rosacea, which is another classic manifestation, remember, anytime you have redness, you got histamine. which is another manifestation of excess histamine. That's also caused by H. pylori, and that's why people who have rosacea will get an antibiotic to get rid of the bacteria. Same idea, but it's not the bacteria that's causing it, it's the histamine the bacteria are secreting. All of which is to say, you want to control histamine levels, and there's many ways to do that. First of all, there's an enzyme in the body called DAO, which helps you metabolize histamine. There are many people that don't make DAO, that have low levels of DAO. Diamine oxidase is what DAO stands for, and it helps break down histamine. There's another enzyme that breaks down histamine that methylates histamine. We haven't got a chance to talk about methylation as much as I want to, but if you're dealing with an MTHFR deficiency, you may not have enough methyl groups, you may not have enough methyl power to detoxify your histamine. So getting on methylating agents can be helpful. Great methylating agents is in our ultimate enzymes. It's called betaine HCl. And betaine has multiple health benefits. In addition to delivering HCl, it's also a methylating agent. So you can use your ultimate enzymes to support histamine detoxification. Beyond Tangy Tangerine has nutrients in it that help detoxify histamine, especially vitamin C, which is one of the most powerful of nature's histamine. Which is also a natural 10 is a natural antihistamine. One of my all-time favorite antihistamines is the ultimate zinc, or the zinc FX is a great antihistamine. Guess what else? Melatonin is an antihistamine. So by using your sleepies, not only will you be improving sleep, but you'll also be supporting histamine detoxification. Of course, another wonderful way to deal with excess histamine is to deal with SIBO, small intestinal bacterial overgrowth. And there's numerous strategies for dealing with SIBO. One of the most important is reducing your intake of the FODMAPs foods, which we've talked about before. And the FODMAPs foods are good foods. They just have high levels of fructo, oligo, monosaccharides, and polyols. Fancy way of saying undigestible sugars, fibers. These fibers are FODMAPs foods. They're found in bananas and pears and okra and squash and other good foods, and they feed those bacteria. So going on a low FODMAP elimination can help with SIBO, improving bowel elimination by using fasting strategies, calorie restriction strategies, magnesium, the osteomag, the rainforest, ultimate rainforest has laxative properties or bowel improvement properties. One of my all-time favorite strategies for folks who are dealing with chronic constipation is the vitamin B1, which is found in a mega dose in Beyond Tangy Tangerine. Beyond Tangy Tangerine in general is great for helping support the elimination of the intestine and improving bowel functioning. Also, bile, B-I-L-E, bile, which we were going to talk about. We'll talk about it tomorrow, next week. Bile has antibacterial properties. Stomach acid has antibacterial properties. So making sure you're using your ultimate enzymes, which will get you bile. Many ways to improve SIBO, which will in turn improve leaky gut, and which will in turn help lower histamine levels. Another great strategy for lowering histamine levels is to stay away from histamine-stimulating foods, to histamine-producing foods. Now, I should mention this, I forgot to say this, that if your histamine levels are high, because you're either dealing with SIBO, or you're activating your mast cells, or you're eating histamine-containing foods, pollen allergies, when they're extreme, are associated with high levels of histamine that are already in the body. It's kind of like the straw that breaks the camel's back. So by working on your SIBO, you can lower your histamine load. You may be able to go a spring season without having hay fever when you had hay fever your whole life, and nobody told you it was related to elevated histamine that's coming from your intestine through SIBO. These guys, are you beginning to see why I'm so big on focusing on digestive health? It's linked to everything else. There's a really horrible health challenge called MCAS, which stands for mast cell activation syndrome. Mast cell activation syndrome is when your mast cells, which contain histamine, are very, very, very sensitive. And they're very, very sensitive because of toxicity that's getting into the bloodstream and toxicity that's depositing in the connective tissue. People who have mast cell activation syndrome will react to everything. They'll react to the sun. They'll react to hot water in the shower. They'll react to tight clothing. They'll react to cosmetic ingredients. They'll react to sunscreens. They'll react to fragrances. They'll react to shower chemicals that are coming out of their shower curtain. Mast cells become sensitized because of toxicity that's entering into the blood. Once again, showing you the importance of the relationship between toxicity that enters into the bloodstream through the intestine and seemingly disconnected health challenges, including connective tissue health challenges and autoimmune diseases. Breast cancer, too, by the way, all cancers really can be associated with histamine, elevated histamine production. Long COVID is a histamine problem. Chronic Lyme disease is a histamine problem. Anytime you have a mysterious health challenge where the immune system is being activated chronically and you don't know why, suspect histamine and mast cell activation, which means you go back to the digestive system, dealing with SIBO and looking to eliminate histamine-containing foods, which are the two most important ways that histamine levels go up. And then, of course, using all your antihistaminic strategies in addition to patching up the leaky gut, dealing with your SIBO, and what was the other thing I was going to say? I forgot what the other thing I was going to say. Using things like DAO and methylating agents to help the body detoxify histamine. How's that? And by the way, dried fruits are another very high in histamine. Raisins, dried apricots, those kind of fruit leather things, those are very high in histamine. Go ahead. I'm sorry, Rebecca.
So, well, that kind of goes into my question, because I was going to ask, well, what about kids? And kids are coming up with so many allergies so young.
Yeah, it's because of the foods they're eating. Because of the foods we're eating. Look at what kids eat these days. Listen, I always feel funny talking about food in the digestive system because I know there's people out there rolling their eyes right now. Oh, there goes Ben again talking about food and talking about digestion, blah, 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 blah. You have to. The body, remember I just talked about this on our Bright Bite that we did with AJ, right? I talked about how first we had the triangle disease, which I thought was pretty simple, 3 points, okay? Digestive system, blood sugar system, the adrenal thyroid complex. But then I realized that was even too complicated. So we addressed it to the 2 points. We called it, we didn't come up with a very good name, but we called it the plane of disease, the dots of disease, whatever we call it. But then I realized even that's too complicated. So if you just focus on food and digestion, you will begin to resolve almost every single chronic health challenge. Now, I've just told you the mechanism of histamine, but there's other mechanisms too. Leaky gut, there's a hidden guilt. We know that they're bad for us and we're doing it anyway, so we feel guilty about it. So people don't want to hear about food. But the point I'm trying to make is this represents leverage. It's a point of power for us. And so you can eat whatever you want to eat. That's no big deal. Eat whatever you want to eat. But know that if you have arthritis, or you have multiple sclerosis, or you have part of dementia, you have an autoimmune problem or a skin problem, or a cardiovascular problem, or whatever it is, this is power. This represents the key to your shackles, your handcuffs of the medical model. We're being handcuffed by drugs and by surgical procedures and by medical strategies, ablations and radiation, in addition to drugs and surgery. We're being handcuffed, and understanding the digestive link, the food link to our disease process, represents our liberation. It represents our freedom, and that's how we want to look at it. Not like it's, oh my gosh, I can't have Ben & Jerry's anymore, but oh my gosh, I'm not going to have multiple sclerosis anymore. My skin is going to clear up. My Parkinson's disease will reverse itself. And this gentleman that I've been working with for almost 2 months now calls me every Friday. he's gone from a 10 to a 5 to a 3 in terms of his Parkinson's symptoms. And he's been going to doctors for years and getting worse every time he goes. He called me yesterday. He said, you know what? Every time I take my Sinemet, which is your Parkinson's drug, I feel worse. The drugs themselves make us your drugs. Chris said, no, you're not going to up my drugs. And he's a layperson. He's not a health professional. He's just a regular guy in Alabama who had no idea. And this is what's possible when you focus on digestive health and food health, whether it's by handling your leaky gut, or by handling your SIBO, or by dealing with histamine-containing foods, using the antihistaminic nutritional supplements, using DAO, et cetera. There's a whole host of countless, endless nutritional, digestive and food strategies.
Recording in progress.
Which is why you got to be very, very careful. If some medical professional tells you to inject something into your skin, you got to be very, very careful. We know that people who abuse drugs, intravenously abuse drugs, have many of the same health challenges that people who have long-term chronic, who have digestive health, long-term chronic digestive health issues have. But for most people that we're going to talk to, they're not going to be shooting up crack in the back alley. You know, the injection, that may have caused it. But for most people, blood toxicity, blood pollution, dirty blood is initiated at the level of the intestine through a leaky gut, which itself is caused by small intestinal bacterial overgrowth, as well as histamine, as well as estrogen, and a few other things. But for the most part, our
Recording in
Of what
progress.
somebody would need if they're wanting to clean up their blood.
yes, yes.
What else
What
would you
else?
add to a protocol for
Dr.
that?
Ariaz's liver cleanse.
The liver cleanse.
We didn't talk about bile. I wanted to talk about bile. I want to talk about bile. Bile is another very, 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 very important detoxifying substance. And if you're not making bile, or your bile is sludgy because it's toxic, you may have issues with toxicity buildup. So supporting bile flow can be important. Herbs like dandelion greens, bitters can help stimulate bile flow. The ultimate enzymes can improve bile flow. That's another strategy for improving bile flow and eliminating toxicity. One of the reasons bile becomes sludgy is because bile eliminates things. One of the reasons bile, when we talk about bile, we always talk about bile as part of the digestive system, which it is. Bile helps alkalinize acidic food as it enters into the intestine from the stomach, and it also is important for separating out fats so that you can absorb your vitamin A and vitamin D and vitamin E and vitamin K and essential fatty acids and calcium and zinc, etc. But bile also is used by the body to eliminate things, especially food toxins. Also, old hormones are eliminated from bile. Also, bile elimination is one of the ways the body lowers levels levels naturally. By the way, bile is a form of cholesterol. Yet another reason why cholesterol, another manifestation of cholesterol is incredibly important, and another manifestation of the stupidity of forcing your body to make less cholesterol. Liver, and it is sent over to the gallbladder, which concentrates the bile. And then when food hits the intestine, when it comes into the intestine out of the stomach, that bile is down the acid, it's supposed to neutralize the acid without making enough bile. You're going to run the risks of inflammation and irritation at the level of the intestine. The body will use water to cool itself off, and that's why people who don't have a gallbladder or have bile problems will have diarrhea and loose stools, because the body's trying to cool the intestine, which bile is supposed to do, but there's not enough bile coming in. If you have your gallbladder, people, you want to keep your gallbladder. Do not let anybody tell you that organ's not important. They do say that. If anybody says that, they don't know what they're talking about. That's a problem of sticky, sludgy bile. Remember, bile is cleaning out toxins. But here's the thing. The bile goes from the gallbladder to the intestine. Check this out. Bile goes from the gallbladder to the intestine, and then it gets dumped out of the body partially, and the
I think
Recording
in
in
relation to a
progress.
mineral, implying it was a bad thing or a bad form of the
No.
mineral?
No, it's just usually oxides are usually not as well handled as plant-derived minerals or as glycinates or amino acid chelates. Oxides are not one of the most rapidly. I think we were talking about zinc when I said that. I think it was zinc. The best form of zinc is zinc picolinate and zinc monomethionine. Zinc gluconate and sulfate are secondaries. They're not as good as those two, but the zinc oxide, I don't even know if you can get zinc oxide as a supplement, but I know you can get magnesium oxide as a supplement. So oxides tend to be a little less, and carbonates tend to be a little less, a little more poorly handled by the body than amino acid
Oxide.
I think it might have been
You
magnesium.
mentioned,
Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Becca, back to you.
Hello. Hello. Hello.
I was unmuted. Somebody muted
Okay.
me. Let's move right over to Gail. Gail, what question do you have for Pharmacist Ben today?
Hi, thank you. I wanted to know
And
In
estrogens have to
progress.
be eliminated quickly. Synthetic estrogens like progesterone or estrogens that are estrogen-like substances, which are similar to estrogen, they're found in cosmetics, sunscreens, preservatives, phthalates that are found in plastics, are very difficult for the body to eliminate. They tend to get stored. So if you end up storing estrogen, which is one of the most powerful of all the hormones, you can run all kinds of risks on revving up cell growth, proliferation. This is why estrogen is associated with cysts, and estrogen is associated with cancers, and estrogen is pro-inflammatory. And most chronic health challenges most patients who suffer from chronic health diseases are women. Most autoimmune patients are women. Fibromyalgia is a female health issue. So women are progesterone, but non-toxic progesterone. You have to make clear to your doctor that you don't want a progestin. Progestins are pharmaceutical progesterones, and doctors don't know the difference. So they'll say, we're going to put you on progesterone, meaning that we're going to put you on a progestin. So you have to insist on progesterone, which you don't need a doctor's prescription for, by the way. It's available over the counter. So anybody who's using estrogen because their body is exhibiting or manifesting estrogen symptoms would be well advised to use progesterone before they got on any estrogen product. As far as HRT goes, it doesn't really make biochemical sense. If some people get benefits from it, that's great. I don't recommend it. Now, many of the signs, the symptoms of menopause, including the hot flashes and the anxiety and the depression and the weight gain and all the misery really it's associated with the menopause, are linked to blood sugar and insulin and histamine.
Okay.
So once again, our
Yeah.
2 points. 2 points, blood sugar and insulin.
Yeah.
And for women out there who are dealing with hot flashes, see if you can relate your hot flashes to wine and cheese. I have noticed that women, once they hit menopause, they love wine and cheese, both of which I see the ladies laughing out there, right? Wine and cheese. Wine is high in histamine and sugar, and cheese is also high in histamine. So laying off the wine and cheese is another good strategy. But there's really no good reason to put estrogen in, pharmaceutical estrogen into your system. Phyllis